This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Friday, November the 28th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's producing the Come On With It edition. So, if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial, get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 86. 26 right off the bat. Big thanks to Linda Swain for sitting in for me yesterday. Just felt miserable and not so much better today. Anyway, let's keep going. Belated happy Thanksgiving to our American friends. Many Americans actually living here in the province, obviously. And apparently some 45 million turkeys were consumed yesterday by the Americans. And I know times are tense for some Canadians and some Americans, but happy Thanksgiving to you. I was disappointed to see Team Guzhou knocked out of the Olympic trials because the end is near for Brad Guzhou. Don't know what the future holds for Mark Nichols and the rest of the team, Botcher and Walker, but we still got some pretty good teams fighting it out for the Olympic berth. On the men's side, Jacobs and Dunstone, two of the very best rinks in the world. On the women's side, Rachel Holman and local Team Black, they're a Halifax-based team. So still got some pretty great curlers out there. They're sticking to some bigger issues. Latest report coming from End Homelessness St. John's about the number of homeless people here in the city. And this only captures, you would imagine, a fraction of people who are either homeless or precariously housed or a check away from being homeless. All right, let's get into it. Over the last 3 years, the rate of homelessness in town has tripled. So here comes the winter months. So this is obviously concerning for their own safety, for public safety as well. So, they capture a number that says some 475 people in this province, or in this city, experienced this homelessness during the month of September. 67% of those were classified as chronically homeless, meaning they've been unhoused for an average 6 months or over the last year, or 18 months over the last 3 years. This is the bare minimum estimate. I see a tweet coming from the Prime Minister yesterday about Build Canada Homes using Canadian technology and Canadian lumber and the rest of it. Let's get at it. I mean, this homelessness issue across the country is really getting out of control. And just remember, I'll hear people tell me constantly that, well, it's maybe their own fault that they're homeless. Well, there might be a modicum of truth to that, but for the vast majority of people, there's contributing and complex issues that have led to them being homeless. It comes with a huge cost to society. I suppose you may be worn out hearing it, and I'm worn out saying it, but if you talk about the cost to have people actually housed, and what that means is one of the key determinants, social determinants of health, again, the chronically homeless, when they interact with the healthcare system, they're in hospital twice as long, costing us twice as much. So if you're worried about the bottom line and worried about where the money comes from, well, guarantee you, to house those 475 people before they become ill and they're in the hospital, we're up money. And it is one of the key social determinants of health, including education, and homelessness numbers are absolutely out of control. And Doug Pawson from End Homelessness St. John's is welcome here on the programme. And just to give you an inkling about how things can go so quickly sideways, the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy, which is part of the Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, they're a regulatory body, do some administrative work, and they're arm's length from the Government of Canada. So they're in charge of the administration of the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act. They also have certain duties under the Companies Creditors Arrangement Act. Here's some of the debtor profile report. The last one they published was back in 2021. This one is for 2024. Nationwide numbers. 137,295 consumer insolvency filings. That's up from 90,092 in 2021. Proposals made up 79% of total consumer insolvencies. 21% were bankruptcies. These numbers are way up. Out of every 1,000 every 1,000 adult Canadians, 4.2 filed for insolvency. That's the highest rate since 2019. Then the blend of people inside these insolvency and bankruptcy numbers. Married or common law, 37%. Single, 42%. Divorced or separated, 18%. Widowed, 3%. And some of the contributing factors for these financial difficulties: loss of income, 45%. Medical reasons, 20%. Relationship breakdown, 11%. Financial support of others, 7%. And a business failure contributes to 6% of these almost 138,000 consumer insolvency filings in the country in 2024. Those are pretty concerning numbers. Okay. Then you talk about things like where the jobs have been created. Since 2015, Canada has added 950,000 jobs. 30% of all employment gains since 2015 have been in the public sector. Amazing stuff. And some provinces, the numbers are absolutely unbelievable. Let's see here. Atlantic Canada, public sector employment now represents nearly 30% of all employment. If you look at a province like Alberta, 18% of all employment in 2024. There's 328,200 more public administrators in 2024 than there were in 2015. Now we see in this most recent federal budget, they're talking about job losses. 16,000 minimum over the next 3 years, and the long-term forecast of the 40,000 jobs being lost. Again, I'm certainly not cheering for anyone to lose their job. And people could talk about right-sizing as the phrase they use in the corporate sector. But we all have to just ask the questions about the level, the quality, the access to service at the federal level. I mean, some of the major agencies that employ thousands upon thousands of people, like CRA. It seems to me CRA services are getting worse. And don't take it from me, take it from the country's Auditor General, Karen Hogan, who brought out her most recent review of operations at CRA. So people losing their jobs, naturally. The GDP numbers actually come out today from Stats Canada. You hear from different economists, and of course just all opining on what we'll hear today. We may indeed have been able to dodge a technical recession, but growth in the Canadian economy is particularly weak. So we'll see what the GDP numbers mean. But anyway, let's keep going. So Premier Wakeham and other ministers in Ottawa meeting with the Prime Minister and other representatives at the federal government level, both on the government side and on the opposition side. Okay, so talking about a lot of things like nation-building projects and opportunities we have here with critical minerals, for instance. And let's just start the conversation. Also talking about clean energy, which of course is a lot of reference to the hydro sector, but Bay du Nord. Some interesting things on the Bay du Nord front, which we'll try to dovetail with the pipeline announcement yesterday. But how do we couch Bay du Nord as in the national interest? Because it's really just the benefit to the province, right? So the federal government can indeed play a role with expediting the process of framework agreements at the CNLOPB, be involved in the benefits agreement, potentially be involved financially with Article 82, the United Nations Law of the Sea. But I don't necessarily understand how Bay du Nord gets pitched as a nation-building project. And on that front, you know, social media is a strange bird. So whether it be a social media post from the Prime Minister or from Premier Wakeham, you see some kind of interesting and some really quite harsh and idiotic stuff that comes out. But people are also adding, tell Carney we don't want any onshore wind. Well, it's not a federal issue. Onshore wind proposals are strictly within the authority of the provincial government. So it's just sort of strange how the civics get lost on some folks. But when we talk nation-building project, I'm not so sure why we're not leaning in a little harder about hydro. Because in the past, both Conservative governments and Liberal governments have considered development on the Churchill River as nation building. We know this to be true because when Stephen Harper was the Prime Minister, there was a federal loan guarantee of $5 billion. Why? Because it was a nation building project, an opportunity to help Nova Scotia get off coal and coke-fired generation. Then it was extended a couple more times regarding federal loan guarantees. So both the Conservatives and the Liberals have said out loud that this is in the best interest of the country. That said, why are we not leaning in a little harder on that one? I mean, if they've said it in the past, nothing has changed. The opportunity for the provision of cleaner energy, hydro, is a benefit to many regions of the country, whether it be in Quebec or in Ontario or the other Atlantic provinces. So I'm not so sure why that's not at the top of the list, because there's plenty of room for the federal government to play an active role in development on the Churchill River. So I get the Bay du Nord conversation, and, you know, Premier Wakeham saying that this province is now back in the oil business. We haven't been out of the oil business since Hibernia. Brown began producing oil in 2017. We've got Bay du Nord sitting there just awaiting a business decision. Yes, I mentioned the framework agreements and benefits agreements that have to be done. But on the upper and at Gaul. I'm not so sure why there's not more talk there. To that end, so we all know about the conversation about an independent review, but something has changed. Because now when pressed, Premier Wakeham is talking about not hiring a global firm to conduct the work, talking about the consideration of appointing a 3-person panel with backgrounds in finance, economics, and energy. Doesn't that feel like exactly what we've already done here? So I don't know how different the makeup of this yet-to-be-decided 3-person panel will be from the current 3-person panel, but when I asked Premier Wakeham, he said we would be looking to some corporate entity with the horsepower, without the conflicts of interest, to come in and have a look at it. Now we're going right back down the road of political appointees. So what's really going to change? He says he hopes to have this done within a 90-day window, calls the April date or deadline artificial. Sure it is. Of course it is. But in the current MOU, the reference to April is so that we can ensure any benefits to this province are retroactive back to January 1st of 2025. So it might be an artificial date insofar as it's not a drop dead for the province. We don't need to adhere to it if we don't want to. It may jeopardize some potential returns to the province. So that's one. It kind of feels like the same approach. Then talk about a referendum. You can think it's a good or a bad idea, but he was asked, I think, at least 3 times by David Cochrane on his program about the referendum. And he basically simply said, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians will have their say. What does that mean? Does it mean they can have their say on this program? Does it mean they can write emails? Does it mean there's an online consultation process? Or will there be a binding referendum, as Premier Wakeham had said repeatedly on the campaign trail? So something has absolutely changed. Not hiring a big global firm to now a consideration of a 3-person political appointed board or panel. So I'm not so sure what has really legitimately changed on this front, but if you want to chime in on it, we can absolutely do it. And with the federal government here, look, to include all of the what-ifs into the future has to be part of these definitive agreements. Notably, the possibility to float energy across Quebec transmission lines, even if there's some form of tariff, but not the obstructive position taken by Quebec over all these years. So how do we not consider that? Because it's possible. And again, yes, I know the whole concept of East-West Energy Corridor is as old as John Diefenbaker in the 60s, but it's possible. Look no further than what is the big pipeline hullabaloo. We knew this was coming, but there's a lot of interesting stuff inside of this as well. So, all right. The Prime Minister and Premier Smith yesterday signed under the broad strokes of a MOU, step 1, to build a new pipeline to bring Alberta bitumen to the BC North Coast. We knew this was coming, and here it goes. There's a lot in here. So for starters, the commitment is for it to be privately constructed, privately financed, very much unlike the Trans Mountain twinning, of which we all chipped in on it, and you're welcome, Alberta. $30 billion plus for that pipeline. In addition, it's important to note that that's not even operating at full capacity. It's somewhere around 80% capacity at Trans Mountain. So at this moment, the proponent is Alberta. Now, with some of the exemptions here, so they're even talking about federal exemptions for the tankers and the transport of this bitumen, exempt from federal laws, including under the Fisheries Act, the Species at Risk Act, and the Impact Assessment Act. In addition to that, there's possibly going to be some further federal intervention with not moving forward with the oil and gas cap on emissions. You know, Alberta's going to be exempt from it. But at the same time, they're accepting a much higher industrial carbon price. So it kind of feels like pick a lane. It was, we need the oil and gas emissions cap to go by the wayside. It looks like it will. We don't want the carbon industrial price, period, in the province of Alberta, but they're accepting a higher carbon industrial price. So there's a lot of strange things here to try to wrap your mind around as to how they got here. Now, we do know 93% of oil exports from this country go to the United States. It's an unpredictable, unreliable market. We sell it at a deep discount in the United States. So it makes sense to try to diversify partners to help fuel the very thirsty Asian markets. But a lot of strange stuff is on the go right here. Then, you read a little further about partnerships, equity ownership with Alberta, BC, First Nations. Okay. So a lot of this is political cover. Whether it happens into the future, I don't know. They're talking about shovels in the ground as early as 2029. It's going to be a couple of years worth of evaluation, or 7 months, then they report back to the government, then who knows where it goes. I have no earthly idea if there's a private sector company out there to do what's being proposed here. I mean, we do know it's going to cost tens of billions of dollars. It's what it costs to build the Trans Mountain pipeline. Of course, there was tons of delays, and people could point fingers of blame where they like, but the courts shut it down based on consultations. But leads to the next point. All right. The Conservative leader, Mr. Poilievre, completely dismisses the MOU because, of course, he has. But he says a pipeline would be approved by a Conservative federal government immediately. It's an interesting position to take. Here's why. So currently in the Charter, all of these types of proposals are guaranteed consultations and approvals coming for, number one, First Nations communities, for which the pipeline will travel through. So that's just part of it. Whether or not you think we should amend the Charter, okay, that's a different conversation. But immediate approvals. Also, the province of British Columbia, they're going to have to be made whole financially speaking. And do they continue to have a veto here? Yes, they do. They do. But is there a way for money to talk, for them to benefit, financially speaking, from a pipeline? Maybe. Nobody's got a crystal ball here. But the whole concept of the federal government alone, of their own accord, saying that we will approve immediately something like this pipeline, which is controversial, especially where it's going to offload in the north coast of British Columbia. We heard all these references to tyranny and dictatorship and all of that kind of stuff. Look, the possibility for provinces to still have some control over decision making is important. Can you imagine if let's pick Quebec or Ontario, whoever, and they say, based on wind conditions, that they're going to build an offshore wind farm right off our coast, transmit the power across the island, and then into wherever their markets would be. People here would be absolutely up in arms, saying, how can we possibly accept another province telling us what we can and cannot do in our own jurisdiction, across our own land, across our own borders? So immediate approval from the feds is not going to be a thing. We can see the fast track office and the major projects office and all of those things, and they may indeed be helpful in some form. But please don't tell me all of a sudden that folks were telling me we were living in a dictatorship, want there to be a dictator to tell me that, okay, as the Prime Minister, I'm telling you in every province that here's what we're going to do. And come hell or high water, regardless of your opposition to, this is what the country is doing. I'm not so sure that's what people really want in their quiet moments, but anyway, you want to talk about it, we can do it. And on that front, so Stephen Guilbeault, who many non-liberals across the country will be applauding the fact that he's resigned as a federal minister. He wasn't even involved in the environment any longer, like Heritage Canada, official languages and the like. So he says this is a step too far from him. And I'm sure he's not alone in the Liberal caucus with this type of feeling. People can applaud Mr. Guilbeault leaving. Whatever, it's up to you. Your political opinion is welcome here in the programme. But let me just say this. You know, even if you think Guilbeault is a huge problem and has been a huge problem for progress and development in the energy sector in this country, okay. But it's also, I think, pointing out that someone who's making a decision based on principle versus party versus politics is heartwarming. I mean, how many principled politicians are out there, even if you think Guilbeault is an idiot, even if you think he's been a huge problem for this entire country, regardless of party, when people stand on principle, boy, it's hard not to give that, even if it's talk about like the golf kind of applause. You know, the very gentle tip of your fingers into the palm of your hand. So Guilbeault out of cabinet, but sticking around as a member of Parliament. So political cover for the Prime Minister to have made this step forward with Alberta. A political cover for Danielle Smith, given the fact that the UCP general meeting begins today. She's going to have to sell it to the UCP, which might be a tough sell, but some political cover for her. Some political cover for David Eby, the Premier of British Columbia, with the continued right to have a say in what's going to cross British Columbia. Some political cover for First Nations Indigenous groups, and some political cover for the feds at large, because it is ensured in this MOU that it must be privately constructed and privately financed, unlike, once again, the Trans Mountain. All right, how are we doing out there, Dave? A couple of very quick ones. I want to say good morning to my good buddy DJ Lex Griffiths, real fixture and feature downtown. And here comes the Santa Claus parade this weekend here in the city, and he is one of the key volunteers for the last up to 3 decades. Lex has suffered a stroke. I'm not really sure of his condition today, but there has been a GoFundMe set up to try to help cover some costs in the downtime that he's going to go through as he recovers. So DJ, get well soon, or Lex, get well soon, buddy. Really top quality guy and a stalwart in the downtown and in the volunteer sector. And on that front, VOCM Cares 50/50 runs until December the 4th. Generally speaking, in the last couple of days, it grows dramatically. So please do indeed support VOCM Cares, the work they do in the community. Everyone loves a 50/50, so why not love the VOCM Cares 50/50? Go to their website, get yourself a tick. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show to wrap up the week. That can only happen if you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin this morning on line number 2. Say good morning to Lieutenant Colonel Tony McDonald. And good morning, Lieutenant Colonel. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How you doing?
Doing okay this morning. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I wanted to provide an update to your listeners and to yourself. Reference my daughter and her application to Memorial University's Faculty of Medicine. So we've been in touch with all the parties for, several weeks now, ever since my daughter was told that because of her being a part of a military family and my moving around since she was 2 years old, that she is not considered a Newfoundland resident, despite the fact that she was born in this province. Both her mother and I were born in this province. All her family roots are in this province. The university says that their hands are tied by the legislation because my daughter doesn't fit the criteria of a Newfoundland resident. So
just to add to it, Tony, and now the family is back in the province, living in the province, and Rebecca is attending Memorial University and was given a designation as a Newfoundlander and Labradorian doing her undergrad studies, right?
Absolutely. Okay. So I got posted back here 5 years ago. My daughter, when she finished high school in New Brunswick, which is the posting previous, my daughter started right away into Memorial University. We requested Newfoundland residency. They granted it. It was a fairly simple application process. And then when she applied for med school, the same institution turned around and said, no, we do not deem you a Newfoundland resident. So that means instead of competing for the 81 seats that are open to Newfoundland residents, she must now compete for only 6 seats that are designated for Canadian residents. So to me, this is very, very unfair. It punishes my daughter because of my military service. And the fact that, you go away to provide service to your country, the Canadian Armed Forces, and then you return and your family is treated like an outsider is very insulting to me as a Newfoundlander. But yesterday we received a letter from the Department of Education, and they acknowledged that there is a problem with the legislation. However, they say that the amount of work that it takes to get this legislation amended is significant, and to quote the letter, it says, this work has begun, but it will take some time and will not be complete for this year's application process for Memorial's medical school. So what that means is that my daughter is now out for at least a year before she can, if they fix the legislation, before she can apply as a Newfoundland resident. And that, again, is assuming that they make the amendment to the legislation that would see Rebecca as a Newfoundlander vice a mainlander.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it, but it always felt like this was going to be the case. You get passed between the med school to the university proper, and of course it's legislation. And to get the government to do anything in short order to hit a timeline that's on Rebecca's timeline was always going to be a massive problem.
Absolutely, Patty. And this is, something, this is my biggest problem with the university. So my issue with one, and in particular the Faculty of Medicine, is how they led my daughter to believe that her Newfoundland residency was a possibility, that an exemption was within their authority to grant. So they told her to submit the application, provide the documentation showing that she's a Newfoundland resident, and that a decision will be made based on that evidence, only for the med school to turn around at the 11th hour and say, oh, sorry, there's nothing we can do about this. This is all legislation. Well, why wasn't this pointed out at the beginning of the process? I mean, perhaps there would have been sufficient time to make an amendment to the legislation had MUN and the medical faculty been up front with us from the beginning. So now my daughter's academic future is on hold for at least a year. So to give you an idea, both myself and my daughter have been reaching out to the university, both the registrar's office and the faculty of medicine, for months. The initial touch point I believe I had with the registrar's office through email would have been in June, and I had to sit down with the registrar's office in July. My daughter was talking to the faculty of medicine again for months, probably the same time frame, explaining our situation, telling them we're a military family. At no point did anyone from the university say, listen, our hands are tied, this is legislation. We could have focused all our energies on getting this thing changed. Maybe, I mean, we're talking 3-4 months. There's a possibility that we could have gotten the previous government on this before the election and made the change so that my daughter would now be considered a Newfoundland resident. But the university, for some reason, couldn't take 5 minutes out of its time to say, listen, this is not a possibility and that our hands are tied. They couldn't do that. They let us go through the process, spend also an enormous amount of money. We're talking over $1,000 by the time you take in the MCAT fees, the application fees, the practice for the MCAT fees, these other tests, these CASPER tests. This is a significant amount of time and amount of money. And the university, I feel the university duped us. I'm not saying that they did it purposely. I think they did it because of, I don't know, just indifference to an applicant that has identified a problem, and they just didn't do anything about it. They just led us on the entire way, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah. I also, I know MUN is operated under legislation, provincial legislation, but some of those definitions, like what constitutes a resident, you think that just in the air of expediency, that university leadership should be able to change those to accommodate the various life circumstances, like Rebecca's, like yours. Tony, this is a question not to be asked saucily, just to give you an opportunity to say your piece here. Why should the residence definition be changed to accommodate Rebecca? Do you think it's because of your service to the country and that circumstances out of your hands? You get posted where you're told you're going to go as a member of the military. So why do you think exemption should be made for families like yours?
Because if you want to actually support the men and women who provide service to the country via the Canadian Armed Forces, and also I'll throw the RCMP in there as well, you have to acknowledge that their families go through certain things. So when I look at I've been in the military now for over 23 years. When I look at the amount of time I spent away from my family, it's not measured in weeks or months. It's measured in years. And I actually sat down during this process. I sat down and I looked at trying to estimate the unaccompanied postings, the courses, the exercises, and then you take the overseas deployments, Afghanistan, Mali, South Sudan, all these things. I estimate that in the 23 years I have been in the forces, I've been away from my family for approximately 7 years. That is a sacrifice, not just for me, that's a sacrifice for the family. So if a government says that they support the troops, be it provincial or federal, then they have to turn around and say, okay, we acknowledge that there are unique circumstances to military life and that we need to accommodate those individuals who are making that sacrifice. And again, the sacrifice is not just on the member, it's on the family as well. This is a huge burden for any family to take. Spouses become single parents for a significant amount of time. Children go without their fathers for or mothers for a significant amount of time. All we're looking for is, listen, we're willing to make that sacrifice. I joined the military because I love the Canadian Armed Forces. I love the Army. But all we're asking for is, in return, is that when situations like this arise, that our family is taken into consideration and that we're not punished, which is literally what's happening right now. The university and the government is punishing my family and treating my daughter like she's a mainlander because I went away with the military. This is so absurd. It's so absurd.
Yeah. I mean, in these, whether or not when the definition was brought forward, people would have or could have or should have considered these different life circumstances and be able to accommodate with a variety of clauses in the legislation. But now that we know, and now that we have a clear example of, it should be able to be addressed quicker than not. And it shouldn't have to rely on the glacial movement or progress inside the House of Assembly, for instance.
I agree. And you know something, you brought up a good point. Where were the government lawyers who wrote the legislation? And where were the MUN lawyers who reviewed the legislation? A simple search would have identified that other major universities in Canada account for what military families go through and allow for exemptions to the residency criteria. But for some reason, the lawyers in Newfoundland, the lawyers at MUN, they couldn't do it, or they didn't do it.
Tony, I appreciate the update, even though it's not the one that you wanted to offer, not the one that Rebecca wanted to hear. Anything else you'd like to say this morning, sir?
I will throw out one other point. One of the things I'm having a hard time understanding, because everything is done through formal letters, it's difficult to get people on the phone, is what has changed in the legislation that allows MUN to grant a residency in 2021 but not in 2025. And on top of that, how is granting such an exemption, how would that negatively impact the university? I don't understand this. So if you play a hypothetical, what would happen if MUN said, yes, we made a mistake, we acknowledge that, or not we made a mistake, but there's a problem with the legislation, and we're going to grant Rebecca the exemption. So if the university and the government acknowledge the problem, what will be the consequences for MUN to grant her an exemption? Are they concerned that the government would punish them for not following the residency legislation? But if the government agrees that there's a problem, why couldn't they just do it? I'm having a hard time understanding how people in authority who apparently have all this power, their hands are now tied by some ink on a piece of paper.
Yeah, totally get your point. And Dave tells me someone called and said, what about CRA proving it? But the issue is you have to be a permanent resident here for 3 years, not just that you filed your taxes here last year. So there's a time issue for the residency definition. And it's interesting, Helen, one of the listeners, points out that General Recallier, back in the day, there was actually special provisions for children of veterans and military families at Memorial University, including access to some scholarships. So this is cake and eat it too, or people trying to have it both ways. Tony, I really appreciate your time this morning. Keep me in the loop.
Thank you very much, Patty. I appreciate the work you guys at the VOCM newsroom did on this. It's been beneficial.
I appreciate it, and hopefully it helps into the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Lieutenant Colonel Tony McDonald. I mean, look, Rebecca had no choice where she was going to live as a child. And Lieutenant Colonel Tony McDonald had no choice where he was going to be posted. Born here, both parents from here, Rebecca born here, comes back here, goes to Memorial University, doing undergrad studies with a designation as a Newfoundlander and Labradorian, but the definition for local, for the competition for a med school seat, doesn't apply. Let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Jerry, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Patty. I'm calling from the Burin Peninsula concerning our health care, which is no surprise to anyone. But this more particularly is to do with the labs. We have to make an appointment for blood work here. And from what I can find out, we're the only hospital that hasn't dropped that protocol since COVID. And I read a post from our MHA that he visited the hospital and the seats were empty in the lab. And he asked one of the lab workers, why are there no patients? And was told that 177 people have canceled this year. My problem with that is you can't get through to the clinic to make an appointment. When you do get through, you're booked 5 weeks, 4 weeks out. Doesn't matter unless you're urgent. They will not take you under that time. I'm sure you're familiar with the Burin Peninsula and the size of it and the age of our population. Mm-hmm. Say you live down in Baillargent, Terranceville, Grand Lapeer, any of those places. You're making an appointment to come up to the hospital for blood work, okay? They usually include it on a day that they have to come up to do other errands or what have you. You can't do that anymore. You can't get your blood work done before a follow-up appointment with your physician unless you're marked urgent, which isn't the case that you should have to do. Paul Pike was lied to. You cannot get through to make an appointment, and you certainly can't get through to cancel one. I'm fortunate. I live pretty close to the hospital. I can drive in, walk into the lab, and make an appointment. A lot of people on this peninsula can't, health-wise and financially-wise. And I don't know who to talk to get this fixed, because it isn't happening in other hospitals. It isn't.
I know even here in the city, I had blood work ordered there, I don't know, a few months ago, say. And when I went to book, 17 days later was the first available appointment. But at least I was able to do it online. So there's no online booking portal for the Bjorn Hospital?
No.
That's a strange one right off the bat. And just let me go back to there were no patients there. And the comment from whoever the person spoke to was, well, 170 people have cancelled. But what does that have to do with the fact there's nobody there? So are there no technicians back there? Or I'm not sure what that answer means.
I don't either. And that's what we need to find out, because there are a lot of people. And I know I've seen posts on Facebook. I've seen other social medias. My husband owns a business in this town that relies on appointments. We have a garage and tire store. Okay. So if you book your appointment for 9:00 and you don't show up and you don't call, then that's a problem. And the same thing happens in the blood work, right? But they're not rebooking anybody because they're saying nobody is calling back to cancel. I'm not spending 2 hours on the phone waiting for somebody to pick it up. The voicemail doesn't even cut in half the time. You can't leave a message. There's 3 receptionists behind that desk. 3. And nobody answers a phone. You know, I'll give you an example. I had a follow-up appointment with my nurse practitioner on Wednesday of this week, since the 22nd or the 21st of October. My next appointment was booked for last Wednesday. I had to have blood work. You know when my blood work is? This afternoon. So I've already seen her. And she was shocked that I'm still waiting for blood work. But it's happening over and over and over in our community. We're hearing people talking about it all the time. Every day my husband comes home and says, you know, I didn't realize it was so bad up there. The Bjorn Peninsula healthcare system, it's fallen through the cracks. I have no idea if it's a management level, if it's a financial level, a staffing level, but someone needs to come out and figure it out. We matter. Our seniors certainly matter.
Of course. And I mean, and we're not talking about access to a cath lab, or we're not talking about a CAT scanner. We're not talking about specialized surgery. We're talking about blood work.
Blood work. Exactly. I have rheumatoid arthritis, so I have to have screens of x-rays and blood work every month. I didn't have to have an appointment for my x-rays. I walked in and spent 45 minutes getting x-rays because they x-ray every joint in my body pretty much. But I didn't need an appointment for that. I could have had my blood work done while I was there because there was nobody in the seats. And they wouldn't because I had an appointment for today. Like, this is not making sense on any level.
No, it's not. I'm still kind of scratching my head about the empty waiting room, and has something to do with cancellation. Certainly not everyone that was booked for blood work that day cancelled all one fell swoop. So that to me feels like a staffing issue. Like most things in healthcare, surgeries being postponed and wait list stuff.
Absolutely.
This is human resources related for the most part.
Yes, but it's also a management issue, I think.
Oh, sure. Fair enough.
Like, I was human resources manager for many years in a large company in New Brunswick, okay? I moved back to Newfoundland thinking, oh my God, I haven't got to go through that rigmarole of going to find parking and all that stuff to go to the hospital. Well, I'd rather do that any day than what I'm doing right now. It's very, very frustrating. Like, I can send you pictures. I was in a couple of weeks ago on a Friday. It was 10:30 in the morning for x-rays. There wasn't one person waiting, not one. The whole lab was empty, except for the 3 girls behind the desk. But I didn't have to make an appointment for that because it was x-ray.
Right. You had a requisition, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I understand. It's, people say, well, how's my surgery postponed when the surgeons, we're told we have all these surgeons? The problem is, unless it's a day surgery and people say there's no bed, there's actually a bed, physical bed. It's the staff to accommodate the patient in the bed. You know, even just, I mean, there's so many factors that contribute to this stuff. Like, how many people in a hospital bed today should be, by their own diagnosis, by the doctor, they just need to be in a long-term care facility. But we don't have the staff in long-term care to accommodate that person, so they're in a bed in the hospital. There's just so much of this boils back to staff, and to use your reference to management as well.
Yes, absolutely. It needs to be run more like a business than a department of the government. It really and truly does. As a manager of that Department of Human Resources in Buren, be transparent. Say we don't have enough blood technicians to work. This shift will not have blood collections because there's no one there. But you're talking 10:30 on a Friday morning, and there's no lab technician in that lab? Come on.
Yeah, something wrong there. I appreciate you painting the picture for us, Jerry. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's a staffing issue. And, you know, and Jerry's reference to running it like a business, I get her point. You can't run it like a business insofar as what healthcare actually does, but insofar as efficiency and productivity, probably. Let's get a break in. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Danielle, you're on the air.
Hi, I was just dropping off some donations down at the gathering place. Just want to let you know, as I was here, there is a huge medical emergency across the street. Unfortunately, I did see someone getting CPR, but the whole section, there is all kinds of emergency vehicles in that green spot across from the gathering place. So traffic, there's a bunch of fire trucks and police on site. So if you're traveling in that area, there's going to probably be a delay.
So avoid at all costs. It's already a fairly congested part of the city. So right there, Harvey Road coming off Military up into that area, please avoid if possible. Danielle, hopefully everyone is okay, but I appreciate the update this morning and the information.
I just didn't know the directions or the name of that park across the way, but like I said, there's a lot of traffic and there seems to be something not good going on. So yeah, avoid the area.
Thank you for this, Danielle.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Man, you see some sad stuff there. I drove right past the gathering place, and look, they're doing their best as far as I can tell with what they have for the complexity of the issue and the number of people relying on the gathering place. But it is a number of weeks ago, coming from the funeral home down the Marchant Road, coming back that direction towards my home, and there was one person lying on the sidewalk on the gathering place side, another one almost directly across the street on the sidewalk. But the amazing part of that is not only is that sad enough a sight, but people were just walking by, right? Just walking right past someone on the street. Now, maybe they knew more than I did, but it looked like quite the sight. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 3, saying more to the executive director at the CNIB. That's Dwayne Morgan. Hi, Dwayne. You're on the air.
Good morning. Thank you for your time this morning.
Happy to do it.
I'm calling in. I wanted to let everyone know about a unique theater production happening this weekend. It's a partnership between CNIB and Power Productions. Power Productions has been doing a theater series called Tales of Us over the years, where they tell stories about people living with disabilities. And this time around, it's all focused on people that are blind, partially sighted, or deafblind. So there'll be 6 unique stories taking place, really talking about not just the challenges of living with sight loss, but the successes that people have had. There's a lot of assumptions about living with blindness, so this is just another creative way that we're going about, dispelling some of those myths and just really raising awareness and celebrating the lives of people that are blind and partially sighted in this province. That's taking place tonight and tomorrow night, so November 28th and 29th, at the Arts and Culture Centre in the Barbara Barrett Theatre, which is downstairs. And tickets are still available at the Arts and Culture box office. So if you want to come out and maybe learn a few things that you don't know, or maybe change some of your assumptions about blindness, come out and check out the stories that people are telling. As I said, people have been coming up, creating their own pieces with input from Power Productions, and there's been a lot of work put into this by a number of people with sight loss, and it should be a great show for everyone.
I'm really pleased that we're talking about dispelling some myths, because, and this is not about CNIB or any other organization, it's important to highlight the hurdles and the pitfalls and the shortcomings of government policy and what that means for people, whether it be with their vision or some disability or on the autism spectrum. But what we don't do is talk about the fact that being somewhere on the spectrum or losing your vision or having some sort of disability doesn't mean it's over. Your life is over. It will be nothing but miserable in the future. People continue to do really good things, important achievements when they are in any of the aforementioned. So I'm glad we're talking about that this morning, Dwayne.
Well, thank you. I will share. I mean, I've lived with significant sight loss all my life. I have a genetic eye condition known around these parts as Newfoundland and Labrador rod cone dystrophy. So if we find someone in Canada or pretty much throughout the world with the exact eye condition as mine, I can probably find a link on the family tree on the extended limbs anyway, and it's been a challenge. I've had the opportunity to live in other places within Canada where some of the infrastructures advance a lot more than we have here. So it's definitely there are challenges. It's important for us to continue to raise our voices. So that's a part of what we do here at CNIB, and certainly we encourage people as individuals. You don't have to be tied to CNIB or anything like that to raise your voice and just challenge society and government to break down the barriers that exist. And the more we see people succeed, the more those assumptions are, changed and those myths are dispelled.
My father was on the board of CNIB years ago for a long time. Dwayne, can you share a personal story, a story that you've heard from another individual? Because obviously you've achieved a great deal in your life with someone with the rod and cone disease. So can you give us another specific story without even saying somebody's name about something that's been achieved that people would have thought impossible given their concerns with their loss of vision or their complete blindness?
Well, I'm not going to give away his name, and if he's listening, he'll know exactly that I'm talking about him. But there is, for example, we have a person with significantly low vision who, did very well throughout school. Was linked with CNIB through, programs that would get people ready for university. He was very successful in university. He's now doing his residency here after finishing med school. Interesting, given the conversation we just heard about med school, but he's going to be a doctor. So, and maybe if someone were to say, hey, I'm a person who's legally blind, the last thing they would probably think is that you would become a doctor. But that's just an example of a success. I mean, there's tons of challenges that we face in the community. Every day, I'm trying to figure out how I get from point A to point B, not just within the city, but you take transportation. If you're not able to drive, it's nearly impossible to get, to different communities within this province without significant resources or significant time on your side.
Hear, hear. Dwayne, give us the details one more time for the theatre production.
Yep, so it's Tales of Us, and it's taking place tonight and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. It's at the Barbara Barrett Theatre, which is downstairs in the Arts and Culture Centre. There are tickets available on artsandculturecentre.com, St. John's, or you can call the box office. And, you can look forward to 6 stories that are unique, but really talk about living with blindness. The challenges certainly are there, but the way people have adapted, adjusted, pushed through, and achieved things in their life. So it should be a really good evening for everyone to come out and join us.
Appreciate your time. Good luck with the event, Dwayne.
Thank you so much, Patty, and thank you for always giving time for the team to come on. I know a number of our staff here jump on and talk about things happening around, and we always appreciate the time you give to everyone.
Happy to do it. Stay in touch.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too, pal. Bye-bye. Dwayne Morgan, Executive Director at the CNIB. Very quickly, you're looking for some Christmas crafts? This weekend, Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. in an effort to support the O'Donnell High's upcoming prom, is their O'Donnell High School's Christmas Craft Fair. So it's November 29th, Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's in the O'Donnell Gym. It's a $5 admission, cash only at the door. There's canteen will be open. There's door prizes, so please do indeed support that. Let's get a break in. When we come back, plenty show left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. It is Research Week at Memorial University. So this one, From Shore to Sea Floor, Insights and Impacts from the Marine Conservation Areas Project. Join us on line number one, Dr. Jonathan Fisher, Associate Professor and Research Chair in the Centre for Fisheries Ecosystem Research. Let's go. Get the right clicker. Dr. Fisher, you're on the air.
Hello, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm here to talk about one of 70 different events going on within Research Week. This is coming up this afternoon from 2 to 4 at the Marine Institute Conference Center. Of course, open to the public, free parking, light refreshments. And one of the highlights of this will be to see students and partners showcasing their findings within this Marine Conservation Areas project. And the project is part of a 5-year project led by the Marine Institute in collaboration with Fisheries and Oceans Canada. And this is aimed at monitoring marine conservation areas that are existing off the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador. And part of this work is some of the state-of-the-art technologies in using largely non-invasive techniques to look at characterizing the water column, benthic habitats, looking at environmental DNA to get a handle on what's out there. Using a lot of cameras and using different nets to even sample zooplankton. And so these provide a strong basis. All this information is worked up here and also goes into DFO processes and assessments. And this is the 4th year that this is being highlighted within Research Week.
It's interesting when we look at the ocean and the living that we've made off the ocean. We talk about ground fish and seals and whales and sharks, but we don't talk very much about amphipods or zooplankton. And we're talking about the entire food chain, so the health and strength of those two aforementioned, pretty important.
Yes, sir. So that's something that has been characterized for a long time. Part of a response after the groundfish collapse was an increased knowledge, and DFO put a lot of time and effort into monitoring some of those things. And so to have some of that information from within these conservation areas gets at everything from marine mammals down to the smallest plankton. It's
interesting. Now, this is a political comment as opposed to academic. Is marine conservation areas have now all of a sudden become a bad thing in some people's minds? I know the country's on the quest for 30-30 marine and land conservation goals, but some of that comes down to, I think, the way the message is communicated. And I know this is not your bailiwick necessarily, but you know, even the confusion that reigns supreme about the National Conservation Marine Area off the southwest coast, nobody even really knows what's going to be allowed, what's not going to be allowed. So do you think politicians should be clearer, whether it be at the Parks Canada level or others, to talk about this in real scientific impact terms as opposed to the politics of conservation?
Well, I think that's where this program can contribute. Information gathered in collaboration with others led by the Marine Institute to get at some of these questions of kind of what else is out there and what is out there. So for some of these areas, there's a limited baseline of information for some of the deepest areas. So I'm talking about areas that have already been established, like the Northeast Newfoundland Slope. Some of these areas go down to 3,000 meters, and there's been less work done at some of those depths. So I think that, certainly a lot of political questions around these issues, and I think that some of the scientific techniques as well as the information that are being developed and delivered within this program can contribute to some of those discussions.
Hopefully so. Can you give us an example of an innovative technique and then what that technique led to insofar as results?
Yeah, so great question. So this has been about monitoring, but part of the other side of that is also discovery. So in 2023, we went out on a sort of routine monitoring of different stations. One of those stations, it turns out, was a very shallow area off of within the Funk Island Refuge. In 2024, there was an Indigenous-led expedition within which Marine Institute was a partner. There was a chance to develop, or a student had developed a camera system and wanted to deploy it at a shallow site. So that site identified the year before was used, and it turns out that was part of the discovery of a dense soft coral garden that extends all over some of those pinnacles around Funk Island. And this is something that was unknown because trawling was not done there in the past because it's just too rugged. And part of this discovery of this soft coral garden is a direct result of some of these technologies, the testing of those technologies, and this opportunity to go out to these new areas that are not too distant offshore and to make these discoveries with partners.
It's remarkable this day and age, 2025, we're still making all of these discoveries. And sometimes I say this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like we know more about space than we do about the oceans.
Well, certainly there's been a recent study that looked at just how slight the sort of footprint of what's been seen in the ocean bottom is, and it's a minuscule number of images that have been taken from the ocean. And that's one place where we're filling in some of these gaps, right? Using acoustics, using cameras on the bottom, using bait to bring in fish to the cameras, to look at them and not extract them, and then to derive all sorts of estimates, even of things like what's the local abundance of cod based on arrival times and numbers at cameras. So these are techniques that are, of course, about marine conservation, but also get at sort of the evolving techniques that are and will be needed within other things like fishery stock assessments.
I appreciate the time this morning, Dr. Fisher. Anything else you'd like to add?
Just like to add that this project also involved 22 different students, involved vast partnerships with, of course, DFO, with Indigenous groups, and some of these things, again, are going to be highlighted this afternoon from 2 to 4 here at the Marine Institute.
How much time on the water would some of these students have spent in the last year, or whatever the number is?
Great question. So more than 250 days in total for all of us. Students have been out there, some of them 2 weeks at a time kind of thing each year, some of them for 3 years. So that's 6 weeks of on-the-water experiences to get to know some of these techniques, get to know some of the ocean industry, and expand their networks and their opportunities. Because we're asking what else is out there, but students are asking what else is out there in terms of opportunities for employment and education after MI.
This might be a quasi-dumb question, but what kind of vessel are they on? Is it something owned and operated by DFO, or does the Marine Institute have their own ships, or what is the case?
Great question. No, this is an industry vessel that's often used in the crab fishery that's then converted towards these science operations. So that conversion takes a couple of days for us to get our equipment on there, to calibrate it, and to really transform that 100-foot vessel into something that can house 10 or 12 scientists and also the crew, and to get all this work done efficiently and safely.
Appreciate your time this morning and the work you're doing, Dr. Fisher. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, the holiday season. Everybody loves a raffle. Hey, bye. Let's go to line number 2. Seamus O'Keefe, you're on the air.
Morning, Penny. How are you?
Great today. How about you?
Well, not too bad. A little mousy day out there, but it's looking good for the weekend. Calling you in just to let your viewers know about an initiative I'm part of through the Canadian Progress Club, St. John's chapter. We're looking to, as you mentioned, to reestablish the tradition of a holiday raffle. And I think a lot of people in this region have, the nostalgia of heading down to Mount Cashel and good times and great memories of sharing with friends and family of, spin the wheel to win prizes and turkeys and hams and have a yarn and share coffee with friends and neighbors. So we're looking to reestablish that this weekend in conjunction with the Downtown St. John's Christmas Parade.
Where's the raffle going to be?
We are, thanks to our good friends at Howard Properties, we are utilizing a space at 171 Water Street for people who remember the Biancas or the former Saltbox Kitchen. We're located right next to Vogue Furriers.
Good spot. What was I going to ask you? What kind of things is the Progress Club working on these days, Seamus?
Yeah, no, we're a national organization, started in 1922. There's 27 clubs across Canada. The Newfoundland chapter is, we're going to celebrate our 40th anniversary next year, and we've raised approximately $2 million for charities. And our two primary charities are the Vera Plinth Society and the Special Olympics NL, and very deserving, and they do great things in the community, and we're proud to say that 100% of our work and our revenue goes towards supporting those nonprofits.
Get out and enjoy the raffle. Anything else you want to tell us about it this morning while we have you, Seamus?
Two things. We're open today, Friday, from 4 to 8, all day tomorrow from 10 to 8, and then Sunday we're wrapped around the parade, working with Downtown St. John's. But I also want to shout out to, and I think it's going to be a theme this morning and throughout the weekend, is Lex Griffiths. I've had the good fortune of working with Lex, whether my tenure on George Street or with the Newfoundland Rogues or Downtown Christmas Parade. Very generous, happy-go guy, and right now he needs our help, and if people can step up, you're helping a good guy.
Friend of mine, too. So do you happen to know about how he's doing?
It was a tough day a couple of days ago. There's some cognitive issues there, and we're really doing too much. He's coming around. It's a slow, steady process. He's inundated with thoughts and warm wishes and get well. I mean, the quick, funny story I heard is that he was being wheeled into St. Clair's, and they had to stop 10 times every minute. All the nurses, hey Lex, how you doing, Lex? He knows everyone, from the weddings he's done to his generous donation of time to volunteerism. He's a well-known person, and he's got a long road ahead of him. The recovery is going to be steep, but I think if we we give him all this love and support we need, he'll make it. So it's trending in the right direction.
Here. I'm glad to hear that. Good to have you on, Seamus. Good luck with the raffle.
Thanks, mate. Cheers. Drop down.
Will do. Bye-bye. I'm actually planning on going to the parade this year. I haven't gone in a while. Something to do. Let's get a break in. When we come back, Tom's in the queue to respond to Lieutenant Colonel Tony MacDonald and his concerns or issues with Memorial University in competition for a med school seat as a local versus not. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Just a question for the general listening public. And it's a good one. So this listener last night online purchased the Ultimate Dream Home tickets before the 12 p.m. deadline to qualify for the early bird prize, including the $10,000 draws. But the ticket is not going to be issued won't be issued until today by email. Do you know if that person hit the deadline by the online purchase, doesn't have to have the tickets in hand? I'm guessing that they do qualify for the $10,000 prizes. Do you know? Let me know. Let's go to line number 3. Tom, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you this morning?
Great today. You?
Good, great. Patty, this truly is a Black Friday today for everybody who's a serving military or a veteran in this province. This is the second time now I've listened to Lieutenant Colonel MacDonald and the situation he's having with his daughter at med school. You know, like Lieutenant Colonel MacDonald, my daughter was 2 years old when I got transferred away from Newfoundland. And she didn't return, and we didn't return until she was in high school. And that's a situation that many of us who are born Newfoundlanders face. We joined the military, and we had to take our families, all over bloody Canada, and then we ended up being sent to places all over the bloody world, leaving our families behind. And I'm sure you listened to Lieutenant Colonel MacDonald saying the places he's been and the 7 years he's been away from his family. And then when he finally gets posted back to this province and his daughter wants to become a doctor and go to medical school, this is the way he's being treated. I could bite off a nail the first time I heard this. Now I can bite off a piece of rebar because all they're doing is hiding behind a regulation. My goodness gracious, I think it's Mr. Din, who is the Minister of Education right now. All he has to do is make a phone call and say, admit this girl. This is absolute BS. Absolute BS. So, I'm outraged, so I can only imagine how Lieutenant Colonel MacDonald is feeling. This is absolutely crazy. Desperate for doctors in this province. Desperate. And a young lady who clearly is motivated and probably will end up being a doctor and clearly will become a resident doctor in this province. And this is the way we're treating her? This is the way we're treating our military? My goodness, it was a month ago, less than a month ago, that we all stood in remembrance of the service of those that came before us. And now here we are treating our serving members like this. Look, I just feel like going over the Confederation building and getting every veteran I know, and I know a lot, and going over there and making a display that will embarrass what we do at Remembrance Day, because every one of us I know was outraged at this. And I'm sorry for ranting, but I'm so upset this morning.
That's fine. I understand why legislation is involved in the operations at Memorial University, but at the exact same time, the university is always talking about more and more autonomy. But for specific cases like this, you think the authority should be granted to the dean of the med school or the dean of various departments for things like residency qualifications. If that young lady, Rebecca MacDonald, can be designated as a Newfoundlander and Labradorian for her undergrad, but not for med school definition regarding residency, it just seems like it's a bit strange. It's a bit ham-fisted. I know that the med school sort of operates a little bit of a standalone operation, like they have their own budget and the like, but I mean, seriously, this can't be done by people who have heard Tony McDonald's story, understand the life circumstance, and make changes on the fly. We shouldn't have to have debates and this being on the white paper and go through the House of Assembly, which takes forever and a day. And to that end, Tony Wakeham, the Premier, has said that opening up the House as soon as possible after all the MHAs are sworn in. Now we're told that they're probably not going to open until spring. So an entire school year is, at the very least, is lost for this young lady.
You're absolutely right. And Paddy,
hello.
The minister can issue a ministerial order. He can order a ministerial order and says, look, screw the regulation, admit this young lady, consider her a resident. And if he doesn't know how to do that, somebody over there, the deputy minister or the assistant deputy minister, should show him how to do it, because it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And if they want to alienate every military person in this province, that's how they're going to do it, by doing stupid things like this.
Yeah, because I mean, the alleged you can offer.
Did I lose you there? I'm sorry.
No, you can offer that type of order at the minister's level, and then just put it on the white paper for the required legislative amendment to take place into the future. These things can get done, as far as I know.
Yes. And who's going to object? Yeah, so do I. The opposition is not going to object. The people at Memorial is not going to object. There's no lawyer representing anybody is going to object. It's not as if they're saying that some stupid thing that the whole people are outraged. Who's going to be outraged? It's just going to be the minister says, do this, and does it. Let this girl get on with her life and her family get on with her.
Yeah, the connection's breaking up pretty badly here.
Ontario saying, this is not true. Sorry. I'm in the parking lot here waiting to bring my son into a dentist appointment. No, I made my plea here, so hopefully somebody will listen, Paddy, and thank you for taking my call.
I appreciate your time. Thanks, Tom. Bye-bye. Veterans, and plenty of them responding via email, that they are quite frustrated by this, and I understand exactly why. And a couple of emailers saying, well, what would be the likelihood of that young lady, upon graduating from med school, to stay and practice here in the province? It's a good question. I don't know, and nor am I sure what she knows she might do in the future, because they're pretty mobile, they're highly coveted, doctors that is, so I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, there's plenty of good arguments to be made for someone who is local, someone from this province, to get into the med school. The likelihood of them staying and practicing in this province versus someone from somewhere else in the country or somewhere else in the world staying is probably greater for the local, right? So I think, and when someone says, well, what's the likelihood of her staying? I think it's probably a similar likelihood of someone else who's from this province that gets into the med school. And I've also heard people say, well, what's the big deal? She can still compete for seats. Yeah, but you're in a smaller pool. I'm going to try to recall the numbers that Tony McDonald was using in the past. So for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians competing, for their share of the 80 seats is like 230. For other applicants from elsewhere in the country, elsewhere in the world, for competing for like 6 seats or something like that, is over 400. So that's the difference. It's not that she still can't compete for a seat in the med school. It's just the competition level and the number of seats competed for. So, yeah. Then, it's the whole thought where, graduates from Munns Med School, in my opinion, should be obliged to stay in this province for X number of years. We'll use 5 as the number, and practice. And we should have some say, I think, upon agreement, upon entering the med school, if they would be willing and wanting to practice in more rural parts of the province as part of their return of service. People keep telling me it can't be done. Well, it can be done. Look no further than the fact that some of the doctors recruited elsewhere from outside the province in the recent past, they sign on to a 5-year return of service agreement. So if I'm helping contribute to your tuition fee, which we are, money flows from the provincial government to the Munns overall budget and to the med school. So maybe there's a way to make that easier. Let's get a break in. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to Sergeant George Cornu with the 37th Brigade. And good morning, Sarge. You're on the air.
Good morning, Teddy.
Morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, quick announcement here. Today we're doing Operation Replenish, Army supporting our communities. We're taking donations for food, bank, monetary, or food. And we're located at 4 locations in St. John's. To begin,
Sounds good. Are you looking?
Celtic Drive.
Okay, sorry.
And Pullman's in Montpearl. So we're here till 3 o'clock today, taking donations.
Sergeant, do they have pre-prepared bags inside the grocery store that people can buy, or are you looking for anything in particular when people are walking through the aisles?
No, we have a box right here to buy something, put it in the box, so we take to the food bank after today's operation.
Well, hopefully people have the ability upon grocery shopping to buy a little bit extra to pop in that box.
Yes, sir. This time of year, we got a lot of people on needing time, and we're here to support the community best we can.
And you're doing a good job with it, Sergeant. Anything else you'd like to tell us this morning?
No, the most important thing right now is get the word out there. There were 4 locations in the city getting donations of food of monetary value, and we appreciate it. Get that all out to everybody in St. John's area.
Keep up the good work, Sarge.
All right, sir. All right, Paddy. You have a good day.
Same to you. Bye-bye. So there'll be, we know the need, we hear the stories, we understand it. It's whether or not people have the capacity or the resources to try to contribute, because there's plenty of big hearts out there that would love to help. So even if it's something small, maybe consider it today while you're out shopping. Let's go to line number 1. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, go ahead. I was driving and I pulled off listening. I listened to Tom. And I listened to Lieutenant Colonel, I think it's Tony McDonald, and there was one thought come in my mind, but now there's 2. And I got a question, and I'll get to my first thought after. Memorial University, isn't that called Memorial in honor of the veterans of Newfoundland?
Certainly part of it, yes, sir.
So that in itself makes it a bit embarrassing for what's happening to Lieutenant Colonel and his daughter now.
I agree. It shouldn't be this way anyway.
No.
Oh, go ahead.
I did serve. I'm a veteran. But the point that I wanted to tell you about, is there are 2 retired military members in Tony Wakeham's cabinet. Surely both of them should have a little bit on the ball and be able to understand this situation.
I agree. And even if you're not a veteran, even if you're just a minister responsible for the portfolio, hearing the story from Tony McDonald, hearing the result of the decisions made, something can be done about this. It's whether or not anybody wants to do it. And to further Tom's point, sometimes politicians are loath to take a chance to offer an exemption for one person or another, but who could possibly be opposed to this?
Right. So, do you want to know the names of the 2 veterans that is in Tony's cabinet?
Well, Lynn Paddock is one.
He is. Parrott is the other one.
I'm sorry, who? Oh, Lloyd Parrott, of course. Lloyd Parrott's also a veteran. I knew that. Yeah.
Yes. And surely they should have an understanding. And I agree that if somebody at the university, the chancellor, or if not there, then definitely the minister could apply some logic and permit that an application to proceed.
No argument for me. I'm totally on side.
Yeah, that was like there's point out that yes, if it's for all of us, then you got 2 people there in his cabinet should have an understanding.
Well, if not every member of his cabinet doesn't have an understanding, then we've got ourselves a bigger problem. Appreciate your call this morning. Thanks for doing it.
Take care. Bless you.
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah, and of course, people say, well, you can't be making exemptions, X, Y, and Z. Look, the lady, Rebecca, in this instance, is born here. Both her parents born here. Tony's a member of the military, got stationed elsewhere, came back here. She was given the designation as a Newfoundlander Labradorian as an undergrad. The trick then becomes the med school and the definition of permanent resident, because you have to be here for 3 consecutive years and have filed your taxes from this province to meet their eligibility requirement for the med school. So apparently different for undergrad, where I guess I understand the point, because the med school is extremely competitive. I mean, I know people, including members of my own family, that are super sharp and had the very best grades and could not get a seat in the med school. So when people understand that, and there's the same level of competition across the country, there's only 17 med schools. So if you thought it might be easier to get into Mun's med school and you're from, let's say, Halifax, and you come here for a year and think that's enough to establish your residency insofar as the Mun med school definition, then of course people might pay a little fast and footloose and fancy free with that, but this is not the circumstance here. Let's go to line number 2, say good morning to clinical child psychologist Dr. Janine Hubbard. And Dr. Hubbard, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get into it. There's a Toronto Star opinion piece. Important to recognize it's an opinion piece, but the headline is stark. It says, when hairstylists get more training than psychologists, it's a wake-up call for Ontario. It's behind a paywall. I haven't had a chance to read it. What is it actually getting at?
Okay, so there are some proposed changes happening or possibly happening in Ontario in terms of the credentials needed to become a psychologist. And you're like, okay, well, that's fine. We're in Newfoundland and Labrador. We have the CFTA, which dictates that if someone is fully licensed as a professional in one province, it's pretty much a rubber stamp automatic transition to all of the other provinces. So this actually does have some implications for all of the provinces. And it's interesting and it's frustrating. So there was a complaint to the Office of the Fairness Commissioner in Ontario saying that, you know what, it's too difficult to get registered, there are too many barriers, variety of things. And a lot of them very legitimate. Also, obstacles to training for, perhaps individuals from disadvantaged groups or northern or rural communities, all totally valid. Here's the thing. If those are also complaints that are lodged when you say, well, we need more psychologists and we need better access so that we can have a more diverse population of psychologists. Great. We've heard the same argument from medicine. We need more physicians. We need more diverse physicians. We need more support to make sure that we can have good diversity in our physicians. We don't decrease the training standards. We increase the supports for that training. Ontario at the moment is proposing things like, and I want to be really clear, it's not master's versus doctorate, it's amount of training that's being required, but they're dropping the supervised hours by up to 75%. Do you want a surgeon who's had 75% fewer, supervised hours as part of their training? I don't.
No, me neither. I hadn't really thought about it like that. But is there any background rationale as to why that is the way it is? Like, help me understand what's actually happening here.
Well, the idea, which is very, very valid, and I'm not arguing, is they want more access for mental health services for people in Ontario. Excellent. But instead of boosting up perhaps some of the programs and training for therapists and psychotherapists and counselors, they're saying, well, we want more psychologists, but they're diluting the training so that what people think of as a psychologist would actually be really altered. They're also opening up grounds for things like private, for-profit, non-accredited training programs. And again, we would have to accept those here in Newfoundland and Labrador. I can give an example. I won't name the school, but there is one in existence at the moment where the ratio for training graduate students is like 20 or 25 students per faculty, whereas an accredited program, it's usually somewhere between 3 to 5 students per faculty member because of the amount of intensity in training, and the other program is all online as opposed to the face-to-face training. So it's presenting a real threat potentially to how we train psychologists, what we think of as psychologists, and like I say, and it has some national implications. So I appreciate you letting me talk about it this morning.
Oh, happy to do it. correct me if I'm wrong, but we're also talking about the numbers of psychologists that are actually currently practicing in this province and different parts of the country, and what that means for the number of graduates, whether they're too few or they're not diverse enough, but the role of the active accredited psychologist with the future and the mentorship of the incoming graduating classes is also becoming problematic.
Oh, absolutely. Because again, this is, unfortunately, it is a nuanced skill set. It is a nuanced, developmental path that we do, which requires a lot of supervision and a lot of, very minute kind of feedback. I keep going back to the medical training because it really is akin in terms of the amount of training, the number of years of training. Yes, it's long. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, there are parts of that, but certainly if you want someone who's responsible for making diagnoses, who is responsible for some of our most vulnerable members of the population, that training is really important. At least that's according to Dr. Janine. I think it's really important.
Of course it is. So is there any barriers as to why things can't change and change in short order? Because some of this just doesn't even make a whole lot of sense. You mentioned, the required training hours for a surgeon versus other disciplines. So what's holding us back here? Is it regulatory bodies like colleges and registrars, or is it academia? Are there professional organizations, or what is actually the hurdle?
Well, the hurdle at the moment is, like I say, the college, so the regulatory body in Ontario is proposing decreasing a lot of these standards and removing a number of exams and competencies. And what I would say, if anyone is concerned about this, I won't give the exact website, but if you Google College of Psychologists Ontario, there is a survey that's in there because consultations are open until December the 9th, at which point it's going to go to the Ontario Minister of Health for discussion and potential next steps.
And all the while talking about the number of Canadians dealing with mental health related matters. We used to say 1 in 5, now we say 1 in 4. And at the same time, we're talking about lowering the threshold of standards for training. Someone help it make sense.
Well, and like I say, and I think what's important, and one of the things that is, I understand, in the pipeline for us here in Newfoundland and Labrador, is licensing of clinical therapists, which would be wonderful because we have a lot of really excellent therapists out there, but at the moment it's not regulated or licensed, which means, it's a little bit of Wild West. There are excellent therapists out there, and there are some whose training, perhaps you don't know the difference. So we're certainly we're not sort of trying to say, it has to be all at this level. There is a role for multiple levels of training and multiple types of mental health providers, and we complement each other. We don't compete, and we want to make it very clear kind of what is the capacity. Yes, there's always overlap, but let's make sure we have everyone working to full competency and provide wraparound mental health services because we know that those are badly needed.
Absolutely. It's all so very confusing. Dr. Hubbard, anything else while we have? Because here we are entering into a season where the need for some counselling or psychologist or whatever the case may be may intensify.
Absolutely. And just please keep in mind, we have done an amazing job in this province about providing short-term quick access. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling stressed in the holiday season, the doorway clinics are available. There are some ways to very quickly have an opportunity to kind of discuss your concerns. The longer-term things, there are still obstacles there, but there's progress being made, bit by bit. So I guess the biggest thing is no stigma, no shame. Make the call, reach out, ask a friend or family member to help you if you need to. But listen, it's been a stressful year. It's been a stressful number of years. Holidays often increase that, so please don't be shy.
Absolutely. I always appreciate your time, Dr. Hubbard. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Patty.
Anytime. Bye-bye. Dr. Janine Hubbard, clinical child psychologist. Let's get a break in. Don't go away. Let's go. Line number 3, say good morning to oil and gas advocate, friend of the show, Rob Strong. Good morning, Rob. You're on the air.
Patty, good morning to you.
Good morning to you as well. Welcome back.
Thank thank you very much. It's been a couple of weeks since we chatted, and so much has gone on. I wanted to call in. But firstly, I want to remind your listening audience of I'm a member of the Elks Club, and we have our 60th anniversary, or 60th spin of the wheel at the Elks Club next week. Our raffle is on: turkeys, hams, salt beef, whatever you want, anytime after 6 o'clock, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So there, I sneaked in a paid advertisement, but Elks has been doing this for 60 years, and we do, from the money we make, we do a lot of good things for various charitable organizations. So there's my plug for the Elks.
Happy to do it.
Patty, I'm reading online, of course, because no one gets newspapers anymore. I'm reading the Calgary Herald today, and I follow a particular reporter called Chris Varco, who's probably one of the best in Canada. And obviously, it being the Calgary Herald, it's focused out west. But he's talking about the announcement yesterday between Ottawa and Alberta. And to quote him, he says, "an absolute game changer." And I think it is. I think that it spells out the attitude that the Carney government has towards oil and gas. In this case, it's about a pipeline and I say potential because it's not a done deal yet, but a pipeline from Alberta to the coast of BC to export about a million barrels of oil a day. But it also talks about the elimination, or at least this emissions cap that everybody talks about was never actually introduced. It was going to be introduced, but the Carney government has scrapped the tax, and that has serious implications, serious positive implications for those of us in Newfoundland. Oil companies that I talk to, and I read about, are saying one of the impediments to drilling offshore Newfoundland is the uncertainty attached to this emissions cap potential legislation. And I, along with many other of my colleagues, feel that the fact that now that the emissions cap is gone, is dead, we should see a lot more activity off the east coast of Newfoundland. And I think that's important, because if you look at VOCM's website this morning, there's a wonderful article about the impact that the oil and gas industry has in Newfoundland. So the more drilling we get, the more chances we're going to find oil, and the more chances we're going to get into production. So we're going to add to our numbers of people working. We're going to add to revenues. For instance, talk about Bay du Nord for a minute. Do you know that over the 20-year life of Bay du Nord, it could generate $11 billion in royalties and $12 billion in taxes? So it's important for Newfoundland, and it's important to do it properly. Somebody called me last night and said, "Rob, boy, no emissions cap. That means the oil companies can spit out all their GHG gases and so on." And that's so untrue. The industry is still committed to net zero by 2050. And you follow this. Did that come out of the Paris Accord, when companies or countries committed to net zero in 2050?
Yeah, I mean, the Prime Minister says they're still committed to it. But here's a question I have about the oil and gas emissions cap. I know it's simply a proposal at this moment in time, but there's very specific provincial carve-outs for federal legislation regarding Species at Risk Act, the Impact Assessment Act, the Fisheries Act. But I don't know if that cap has now been removed in full for the entire country, or whether or not this is an Alberta-specific thing regarding the pipeline. I can't get an answer to it either, because that's a pretty important question.
Well, if it's good for Alberta, it's got to be good for Newfoundland.
I suppose. But, we haven't seen exemptions inside the Fisheries Act or the Species at Risk Act when it comes to offshore development, but they are going to offer federal exemptions to this, at this point, mythical pipeline for the province of Alberta. So it's just a basic question. Does that mean that entire proposal is now off the white paper, is dead in the water, or is that simply an Alberta conversation? I'm just trying to make sure I got the specifics before I tout the merits for us. From
all I've read, it's Canada-wide.
It sounds like it.
It sounds like it. But, the offshore industry is, we're making improvements. I'm reading a document now that says the Sea Rose has reduced emissions from 2007 to 2021 by almost 50%. The Hebron project has reduced emissions from flaring by 77%. Hibernia has reduced GHG emissions by 29%. So the industry is continuing to reduce emissions to get that net zero by 2050.
And one of the reasons Equinor was green-lit is that they, and even Equinor says, they've incorporated dozens, and the number that comes to mind is something like 136 different mechanisms to control emissions. So that's ongoing in the oil industry. Now, that said, production of bitumen in the Alberta oil sands is a vastly different circumstance than it is producing oil offshore.
You're correct, but if anybody can do it, the Norwegians can do it. Which brings me into another topic whereby Equinor and Energy NL had a series of presentations about 10 days ago that were absolutely brilliant. They outlined the project, they introduced the major contractors, they gave us time frames, they gave us bidding requirements. It was a wonderful event. We had over 400 people. And as I say, Equinor and Energy NL are to be congratulated. It was wonderful.
Rob, I want to dig into that a little bit, but do you have time to be on hold for the news? Come back, we'll dig into the EOI and stuff like that?
Sure, I'd love to.
Let's do exactly that. Okay, Rob's on hold. Let's take a break for the news. When we come back, a ton of time left for you. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back. Let's rejoin Rob Strong on 3. Rob, you are on the air.
Patty, before we broke for the news, you mentioned something about EOIs, and I've anticipated you might ask that, so I've done a bit of research on it. But for your listening audience, obviously, an EOI is an expression of interest in what happens when an oil company wants to build something, be it a module, be it a GBS, be it a subsea template, whatever. They normally go out to the marketplace with an expression of interest. And then companies are then invited to submit responses to that expression of interest. The expression of interest document will normally spell out what the project's all about, what the expectations are, vis-a-vis timing, vis-a-vis quality control. They'll also normally ask what one's experience are in those areas. So from that, then contractors will then look at that and will respond to the expression of interest. From the responses the oil company gets back, they will then go through these responses and say, well, we feel this company can do it, we feel that company can do it, we feel this company can't do it, and so on. And so they'll prepare then a bid list with detailed bid documents, including some full specifications, and normally it's a lengthy document, certainly if it's something like a module. And so they'll invite companies to bid, and of course the best bid wins. And unfortunately for Newfoundland, although the Atlantic Accord, Section 45, subsection I think 3 or 4, states that Newfoundland companies and goods and services manufactured or supplied from Newfoundland are subject to price, quality, and delivery. And you can't blame the company for wanting to have the best price and the best quality and the best delivery. So most of the topside modules, which is what we're talking about here, most of the topside modules in the world coming from the Far East. It started off as Japan, it moved to Korea, it's moved to Singapore, and now moved to China. So I did some digging around to see how competitive we could be in Newfoundland with these Far Eastern jurisdictions. And I looked at Singapore. And the average, and I don't take in the benefits. I don't take in the benefits package. I'm just saying, basic salary rate for a welder in Singapore is $1,800 Canadian per month. $1,800 Canadian per month. Average salary for a welder in Newfoundland at Bull Arm, and I based it at $50 an hour, is $8,000 per month. So how can we be competitive when you can get it built high quality in Singapore, because they're building them all the time. When the Singapore labor is $1,800 a month and our labor is $8,000, unfortunately, that's a fact of life. It's not a negative towards Newfoundland, but it's just a fact of life that can we be competitive in the fabrication of topside modules? Because we know there's 19,000 tons of modules being talked about for the for the Beta Nord project, and if they divide it up in normal, 4 or 5 modules, basically water injection, power generation, separation, power, whatever. So how can we be competitive? That's my question when you're facing a labor differential like that.
Well, that's exactly why when Equinor said that they would indeed include an EOI for opportunities here, is they quite clearly said, if we can hit the cost and schedule parameters that Equinor puts forward. So whether or not we can, I don't know. The competitive nature for cost, it looks like it's a real uphill battle. And remember, when Exxon chose not to abide by the benefits agreement for a portion of their construction jobs, they just simply slapped like $100+ million on the table. Said, whatever, we're doing what we want. So they could save minimum $150 million and do some of that work elsewhere versus here. So the cost competitiveness, I think, is a huge question.
That's one of several options being considered, assuming that we can't be competitive, and I regrettably have to assume that. Equinor may offer Newfoundland government a chunk of cash, just like Exxon did down at Marystown. So if we get $150 or $200 million cash, what do we do with it? Do we take it and put it in general revenues? Do we put it in educational institutions like we did for the Exxon money? There's talk of building a floating dry dock for Bull Arm. So there's a whole variety of things to do. And then, of course, as you've mentioned before, it's the issue of what happens to the revenue that we have to pay the United Nations for developments outside the 200-mile limit. Who's going to pay that? Does that come out of the $200 million, assume $200 million? So lots of questions yet to be answered. But as I said earlier, the seminar at Equinor and Energy NL certainly answered a lot of the questions. They spelled out timing and demands and subsea in particular. So she's not done yet, but I think we have to accept the fact, regrettably, and I'm as pro-Newfoundland as you can find, as you may know, but regrettably I don't think there's much in the cards for us for the fabrication of topside modules. I really don't.
At this moment of time, it doesn't feel like it, and which is why I'm a little bit confused. And look, I don't begrudge Premier Wakeham deciding to talk about whatever project with the Prime Minister, but in the whole world of the fast tracking and what's in the nation's best interest, what have you, I don't know how we can sell Beta Nord as a national interest project necessarily, which is why I'm a little bit surprised, because it's only a few years ago when the whole Article 82 issue came up that the province said, we're not paying it. The country said, that's petty. The province should pay it. You're the beneficiaries of it. But the country signed, not the province. So if I'm Tony Wakeham, and I know he doesn't care what I think, but if I'm Premier Wakeham, when I go to Ottawa to talk Beta Nord, I'm looking for a commitment from Ottawa on the financial side, not on fast-tracking approvals and benefits agreements and framework at the CNLOPB. I'm looking for a financial contribution to cover the country's responsibility for Article 82. Just imagine what that means for the business model considerations and a final investment decision if I'm Equinor. So I don't think we're going to get any fast-tracking done by the feds. That's what I would have done if I'm Premier Wakeham. And again, I know he doesn't care what I think, but that's what I would have done.
And likewise, I don't think he cares what I think, but you're entirely correct, because that United Nations clause, that can go up to 7%.
Yep.
And with oil prices hovering around $61, $62 a barrel, there's not a lot of fat anymore. Equinor and Beta Nord would have been a lot better when oil prices were $120, $110 a barrel, but it's I think $61 a barrel today. I looked up. So there's no fat. Who's going to pay that 7% of royalty figure? Whether the feds will pay it, feds say no, it's not ours. The company got to pay it. The company says, as you say, company says no, we're not paying it. The province says we're not. Someone's got to pay it.
Yeah, we've signed on. We're obliged. No matter if people like it or not, we're obliged to pay.
My closing line is that we've got to make this project happen, particularly now in the context of the emission cap. The whole world is watching this. The whole world is watching Bay du Nord. And if Bay du Nord fails, then we're in big trouble. Even though we might not have any tax on admissions. So this could be a very winning period for us. We may, as I say, have to swallow the fact that we can't build modules here. But boy, $11 billion in royalties. It's not bad. And
no.
$10 billion in taxes over a 20-year life in the field. So,
Rob, I'm going to give you an early Christmas present. I'm going to give you a chance to correct me one more time. Break even at Bay du Nord is $35 a barrel.
No. Who told you that? It was.
It was. I know. I was just giving you a chance to correct me again.
I can't tell you what I know.
Oh my!
But it's higher than that.
It is, no question. Good to have you on, Rob. Appreciate your time.
Always nice to talk to you, and an early Christmas. Have Christmas to you and Dave and the rest of the staff. Have a good one.
The same to you and yours. Thanks, Rob.
And see you at the raffle.
See you there.
Okay, Patty, thanks.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Yeah, I've been using that number for a while, and of course it was, but it's no longer at $35. Let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 1 and say good morning to the chair of the Marine Institute School of Marine Studies Naval Architecture Technology Program. That's Winston Pinn. Good morning, Winston. You're on the air.
Hey, Patty. How are you?
Excellent. How about you?
I'm also well. Thank you very much.
Let's get into it. The model boat races.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So tomorrow we are having our annual model boat race here at the Marine Institute, and we've had it. This is our 12th one, and basically what that is in September we sent out some kits to some schools and other places in eastern Newfoundland, and asked them to build a hull around it so that they could come and race here at the Marine Institute, and it's tomorrow. So we're having that race tomorrow.
I remember we had this call a number of years ago. I'm not sure it was me and you, and someone wrote me and said, my goodness, so we're promoting a model boat race? Yes, we're not talking about putting a stick into some turpentine and putting it in the pond. This is a bit more innovative than that.
It is, yeah. So the main thing is, though, for us is that kids in high school and junior high get an opportunity to get exposed to the idea that ships and boats and all those things have design behind them, right? So we send out the kits, and they're basically like radio controlled model boats, and then so we have those guys, and we have mentors, we have people that help them out and stuff, and there's teachers at the school that help out, and basically what they're doing is they're building a little boat, and then they have to put the engine in there and hook up the shaft and make it steerable with a rudder, and then they come in and they compete against each other. So they do maneuvers, they do maneuvering, and then they compete head to head, which tends to be the loudest of all the races here. Because we have some pretty enthusiastic students, as you can imagine.
No doubt. So in the kit, do you provide everything, like including the shaft and the propulsion systems and the rudder, or are they putting a hull on something that's basically built?
Yeah, no, it's not basically built at all.
Okay.
It comes in components, right? Like you can get a kit like that, and anybody can actually. And so we provide them all the pieces, and they have to assemble it into something that's workable, including the battery, the power, and actually the engine has to be cooled. So they have to think about how they're going to cool the electric motor and all that kind of stuff. So it is an interesting project, particularly for those who are sort of mechanically inclined. You know what I mean? Give
us some idea of the caliber or the quality of the model boats that we've seen in the past, because I bet you some people are thinking junior high and high school, this is going to be water made out of loose leaf paper. So give us some idea of the caliber you've seen.
Well, we've seen some real interesting boats over the years, as you can imagine, right? So we've had everything from to where we've had a couple of 2-liter pop bottles kind of duct taped together, all the way to where people have actually made little fiberglass hulls, and now we're seeing additive manufacturing with 3D hulls printed and stuff like that. So, I mean, we get everything from where they're kind of in a hurry to get it done, and to all the way to very sophisticated hulls, you know what I mean? And the main thing is, though, honestly, it's really just about fun. So it's about getting together and seeing what people are doing all over the place. So yeah, it's good. It's a good time.
And to plant the seed about maybe interest into the future, not only for academia but for a job. So that's one thing. Are there any parameters on what they can and cannot use? For instance, it might be pretty easy, especially if you've just kind of dragged your feet on it, to get artificial intelligence to do a lot of the work for you. So any parameters on what you can use?
Yeah, well, we're not too limited, other than we prefer it to be original. So the whole shouldn't be a model that you download from the internet or whatever, or that you can get from AI. And honestly, at the moment, AI isn't doing a particularly great job of whole creation. Although we're not sure how long it's going to be until it does. But it just needs to be original, really, and because again, that's part of the challenge. And of course, we do put some limits on what you can use. We have a length limit, for example. It has to be, no bigger than 700 millimeters, and it gets measured in the morning, during the pre-trial race thing, and so. Again, we've had some super innovative ideas coming from people around, so it's been terrific, actually.
So with those size controls, I probably can't build a cigarette boat like from a Miami Vice.
Well, you could. It just needs to be the right proportions, right? So as long as it's not longer than 700 millimeters, you're good to go.
Okay, cool.
Be long and skinny, yeah.
Do you track how many of the students that participate in the model boat race actually enrolled in naval architecture or marine mechanical design or whatever the case at the Marine Institute?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we've had, of course, this is a great opportunity for us to show off a little bit and have people come in and see what we're up to here. And we've had, of course, the people who track that stuff definitely are tracking people to come back. And I remember one year, I asked just sort of ad hoc in the classroom, how many of you guys have participated in the model boat race, and we had more than 20% of the kids put their hands up. So it is an effective way for us to kind of again show people what we do here at the Marine Institute. So we're pretty excited about it.
The simulators that the Marine Institute has, flume tanks and otherwise, we don't realize just how advanced the Marine Institute is and how many companies and other learning institutions around the world are clamoring for a bit of time in some of the simulators and the flume tank and the like.
Yeah, you bet. We absolutely have world-class facilities here. Like you say, the simulators, and we don't just have one. We have like 10. Yeah. And there's an engine room simulator, propulsion plant simulator. We have bridge simulators, and so we and again the flume tank for testing various bits of equipment. We really have some top-notch stuff here at the Marine Institute for sure.
Before I let you go, how many teams are participating?
We have 10 this year. And they range from high school to junior high. And we actually have a community group this year. I can't think of the name of them off the top of my head, but this is the first year we have a community group. Again, it's about getting young people interested and showing them the possible, futures for a career and stuff. So,
just because I read the news release, I'll help you out with the community group. It's Froud Avenue Community
Center.
There
you go. Thank you. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. The details. I don't have that in front of me. Yeah, no problem. Details one more time. The where, the when.
So we're here at the Marine Institute up on Ridge Road. The whole thing opens up at I think 8:30 or 9 tomorrow. Runs the whole day. I think the first part of the day is maneuvering trial. So the cigarette boat probably wouldn't do so great in maneuvering. And then we have in the afternoon we have speed. It's head-to-head racing. So that's where the cigarette boat might shine. We're also we're streaming onto YouTube. So if you go to our website mi.mun.ca and you scroll all the way down to events and you click on the model boat race, you'll find all the details for the YouTube stream. And we're open to the public too, so you can come on up and go up into the flume tank, and they're here at in the lobby to show you where to go, and you can just experience some of the excitement yourself.
And some of the industry are watching for young talent. I know Genoa Design is part of this. FabTech Industries is also one of the supporters. So they're looking for talent.
Absolutely, yeah. So, as you know, Canadian shipbuilding is going crazy, and we can't produce enough designers to fulfill the need. So, yeah, we get approached, this time and later in the year for our graduates. And last year we had one company said, "How many graduates do you have?" We told them, and they said, "Can we have all of them?" Well, no, you can't have them all. We have to share them out. But yeah, these guys are in demand for sure.
Good to have you on, Winston. Enjoy the event.
Thanks, Eddie. Appreciate it a lot.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Winston Pinn is the chair of the Marine Institute's Naval Architecture Technical Program, I think is what the name of the division is. Let's get that caller to hold on, because he wants to respond to the Tony McDonald call as well. And just for your mind's eye, the cigarette boat, or one of those ones, like if you can picture Miami Vice and some of those southern marinas when you get those super fast, and sometimes the racing boats got that long, sleek hull, that would be the reference I make to the cigarette boat. And, again, we talk about some of the shortcomings inside post-secondary here at Memorial, maintenance deficit, tuition which has doubled, all those types of things. I think people who are maybe not familiar with the Marine Institute and some of the programs they offer and the opportunities for their graduates and things like the simulators and the flume tank, no doubt, the last time I was up there, one of the gentlemen in charge of the simulators is telling us that, look, there are companies that are lined up trying to get some time in the simulators that are right here on Ridge Road in St. John's at the Marine Institute. And I think that kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. I guess it's kind of like most topics, is we look at some of the things that'll grab a headline based on the fact that there's a problem or a shortcoming or a gap in policy or the politics of it all, when in fact there's lots of good comes out of the Marine Institute and Memorial University and the vocational schools around the province, College of North Atlantic and otherwise. Let's check in on the Twitter before we get to the break for VOCM Open Line. You can follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. My favorite is when you join us live on the program on the telephone, getting a ton of reaction to the Tony McDonald chat. And that's, of course, as a veteran of the Canadian military and moving around all over the world. And consequently, his daughter Rebecca does not qualify for the residency rules for Mun's Med School, and that has really meant a big difference to the competition. Let's get a break in for the newscast. When we come back, tons of time left for you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Caller, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How you doing?
Okay. How about you?
Good to see you back.
Good to be back.
Good. I know it is. Listen, I just in support of Tony McDonald there, okay?
Yep.
Calling to support Tony McDonald's daughter there, right?
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, really.
No. It is for Tony. Yeah, I can agree with it. But I went through the same thing over and over and over. Listen, those people at admissions over there, okay, they play hardball. Okay? If they like you, you're getting in. If they don't like you, you're not getting in. And this racket Tony got on with them now, it don't help. He might think it do, but it don't help. Okay? I know few cases in this situation, like Jerry Byrne was going to go over there when he was in and go over straightening up. And you know what Dwight Ball told? Tony, don't you go over there, he said. Don't you leave these people alone. And he didn't go over there. Probably he would have straightened things up over there. He probably knew, and I'm sure he did, that what was going on over there. So they're hard to deal with. You see, if they like you, you're getting in. If they don't like you, you're not getting in for some reason. They take it. Some people finish their university degree and walk right in mid-school. Some more is an uphill battle with them. And I think Tony's daughter right now, here's a man that's been 22 years in the military, and all of a sudden, his daughter's rejected for getting in mid-school. He went over, he spent 7 years away from his family. Right? Those people don't understand that. A lot of those people on the administration, they're foreigners, okay? I get against foreign people, okay? Not like it, but they don't look at things like we do. Right? And I'm saying to you is that she's going to have a hands full. And if I was Tony, and if Tony want to call me, he got my number. If he want to call me, he can call me. I'm going to chat to him. But what I'm saying to you is she may not get in. And she may go to another medical school somewhere in Canada or in Ireland. A lot of people going there and getting in. But I'm sorry.
But the argument that's being made here is that she doesn't satisfy the definition of permanent resident. You know,
I understand that. I understand
so,
it. But that's only Patty. That's only an excuse for those people. If they don't want you, listen. They use lots of excuses on my sibling. Okay, lots of that. So how do you justify it? You tell me. How do you justify it? There's nobody in government right now. In the Liberal government, the red balls to go over there and shake those people up. No. I know. I deal with them. No. That's far as we go. That's it. See, like they're over there. They're untouchable. I wonder if mid schools across Canada have the same problem. Can you tell me that?
Well, I would imagine yes. So I'm not so sure if you're in. I don't think I'm following your point insofar as either support or lack thereof for Rebecca MacDonald. You think?
I'm supporting Rebecca.
Okay.
100%, actually.
Okay.
Her dad went over there and spent 22 years in the forces, and then he spent 7 years away from his family. And that crowd over, they knew all that. They read her out, right? They knew all that. But I'm saying to you that they're playing hardball. For some reason, I don't know that. I don't know what the hardball reason are, right? But they're not. She's not getting in, okay? And I can tell Tony. And Tony want to call me. I can tell she's not getting in. They're upset over Tony going to public with his daughter. They're upset over that. They don't like that kind of stuff, okay? And you follow the story, and there's a day coming. You'll tell me, yeah, you're right.
The problem is, it seems to me that there's a short-term solution here that at this point no one seems to be willing to apply. Why? I don't know. I mean, should there be some sort of restrictions regarding being designated someone from Newfoundland and Labrador to get into med school? I understand why. Because you could have people from all over the country who know that there's a loophole that they can jump through to have easier competition to get into med school. We don't want that, but we don't want this circumstance either. And this is unique. Being a daughter of a military veteran who he had no choice. He's told to go to Petawawa or to go wherever, Gagetown, he goes. And they come back here. She lives here. She's designated as a person from this province, as an undergrad, but it doesn't qualify for med school. It's a little tweak that I think is easy enough to make if anybody wanted to.
Patty, I know a person got in medicine, okay? Right? He has some abuse problems, right? And when they finished mid school, they didn't qualify to come out and go be a doctor. Okay, they're in the area now. We're a family member, and right, he can't get in there. They cannot get in he's in mid school. What I'm saying to you, but what I'm saying, he finished mid school and he got a degree in medicine, but he can't get on because of his addictions. He can't overtake that. So many students that I know that got in there, that wrongfully got in, to my own opinion, okay? But anybody that's a good person trying to work their arse off to get in there can't get in because of the same thing. I mean, I got a sibling, went to a university, got an honors degree in biochemistry, immunology, psychology. Nope, got all best of America. No, we're not. One minute your interview's up, next minute your interview's down. All kinds of excuses, But they don't want you. Like a couple of students told me, they say if they like you, you're getting in. If they don't like you, you're not getting in. Okay? You're not getting in. So everybody can't be wrong, Patty, right? All those students, they're not all wrong. Somebody got to be right. But are the admission crowd right? A lot of those people on admissions are foreign people. They don't know about Memorial and none of that kind of stuff. I couldn't care less.
How do you know who's on the admissions panel at the med school?
I know some of them. Okay. Right? I know. Okay? Now, that's not public, okay? But what I'm saying to you, someone I know. Okay? And I had a friend, very close friend. He taught at MUN University. He wasn't impressed by the fighter. Some of his siblings never got in. So that's how they are, right?
Okay.
So, you gotta sit, Patty, you gotta sit down and understand it. If you had a son that never got in there, you'd probably be more knowledgeable than you are right now.
Well, I don't think you know what you're talking about on that front. I had a sister who couldn't get in, graduated top 1% of her law school, so I kind of do know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay. But what I'm saying to you is that it don't always work that way.
Okay.
Some people, like I told you before, walks right in mid-school and walks around it and waves goodbye and never returns to Newfoundland no more. Gone Timbuktu. Don't ever think, like I heard Jim Dinan talking a while ago. He said that, we're going to make mid-school, try to make mid-school bigger. So what's that going to prove? So he puts it, since 80 students, we're going to put it on 120. Well, we've had a mid-school here in Newfoundland for 75 years. 100 years.
1967.
And what do we got out of it? We got nothing out of it?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, we did we? Well,
Yeah,
I got no doctors. No doctors here. Everybody's looking for a doctor. We got none. They're turning them away.
Okay. I appreciate the time. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, okay, Patty. Thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye. Let's see here. Let's go to line number 3. Jennifer, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How you making out?
Grand. You?
Not too bad. I just wanted to call to bring to attention an issue I just ran into with the Newfoundland and Labrador prescription drug program. So I went to pick up prescriptions. This would have been 2 weeks ago. I've been a client with the program for several years, and when I tried to pay, my drug card was denied. Of course, the pharmacist didn't know why, and I was advised that I would have to call the drug program. So this was on a Saturday. So on Monday, I called, and I was told that my application, I guess the application every year, they just resubmit it because I didn't have to reapply, right? So the application came back denied, and I was informed it was because my oldest child had turned 18 in the month of November. So because he was no longer a dependent, then my application would have to be reviewed. And in doing that, I was no longer able to use my drug card program because, according to CRA, he was still listed as a dependent. So I was advised that I would have to call CRA and get them to fix this problem. Okay, so that's not just that simple, right? Like you can't just call CRA. It's not that easy. So at this point now, it's been Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday that I don't have any of my medications. And the side effects of abruptly stopping these were, very severe to my mental health. So I did call. I called back to the drug program on Tuesday, and again, I was advised, you need to call CRA and they will fix it. And I was very upset, and the person I spoke with, I asked them if they could put it all in an email to me so that there was accountability if anything was to happen to me because of my mental state, not having this medication. I was then put on to the supervisor. The supervisor, understanding my situation, did an override, and then I was able to access my card. However, had I not spoke with the supervisor, that wouldn't have happened. I would have had to have gone through CRA. So I received a letter from the Newfoundland Prescription Drug Program dated November 18th, which was the day I was directed to call CRA. And in the letter, again, it states that because there was a difference in dependence, I would have to call CRA to have that dependence removed. I called CRA this morning to find out, how would this work? So CRA explained to me that because my son turned 18 in November, he would stay listed as a dependent for the full month of November, and by doing so, it would also ensure that I would still receive my child tax credit for him for the month of November. But because he turned 18 in the first week of November, now the prescription drug card program doesn't recognize him anymore. So he's now a dependent. He's no longer a dependent, so my card is cut until he is no longer listed as a dependent with the CRA, which wouldn't be until December 1st. So there is a 3-week lapse where I would not have access to the drug card program for myself or my other child until the 18-year-old is removed from CRA.
Got it. I thought the way it worked was if your dependent child had a birthday, say even if it was the 1st November, November got covered. That's the way I thought it always worked, but you're telling me that's not the case at all.
No, the drug program, they cut our card on his birthday, which was the first week of November. Yep. And it was only because I was the person that I spoke with on Tuesday. I don't know the names, and anyways, that's besides the point. The person I spoke with on Tuesday, it was only when I stated that there needed to be accountability if something was to happen to me because of the crisis that I was in due to my mental health. And then I was put onto a supervisor, and they did the override. So had that not happened, it would have been left on me to get this sorted with CRA and then reapply back to the drug program, and I had 30 days to do that. Yeah.
Interesting. I appreciate the information, Jennifer, and I'm glad you had the wherewithal to speak to a supervisor, get that override taken care of. Sometimes we just accept the first answer versus, I hate to be the Karen of the conversation. May I speak with your manager? But we're talking about access to your prescriptions, so good on you for doing it. I appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted people to be aware in case they found themselves in that position. And also they stated that they had sent a letter to me back in October, which I did not receive. So then, of course, the blame was put on Canada Post. So there you go.
Yeah, it's easy to find someone else to blame. Canada Post is an easy whipping post. Jennifer, thanks for doing it. Thanks for calling.
All right, no sweat. Take care.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, final break of the morning and the week. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 4. Barry, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
I was talking to you last week, Patty. I mentioned about our sharing the harvest program and that we're always buying most of the products. I'd like to expand on that a little bit, Patty. It's hard for somebody to donate like 15 gallons of Pepperidge berries or 25 gallons of blueberries. So I just wanted to clarify that point, that I wasn't blaming anybody for not getting any donation.
No problem.
Patty, I'd like to speak about the food fishing and make a couple of quick points to you. First, talk about the season date. Well, this past year, Minister Thompson overnight pretty well initialized an extra 2 weekends for the food fishery because of the forest fires in the CBN. And now, Patty, that's great, but she made that decision pretty well overnight. So why is this decision about our food fishery for the next coming year have to be so difficult and so complicated?
Excellent question. Short answer, it needn't be.
Absolutely, you're right, Patty. The other thing, Patty, is our personal daily limit. We know that our daily limit is 5 fish per person per day here in Newfoundland and Labrador. However, in the Maritimes, they have 15 fish limit, and not more than 5 can be codfish. So here in Newfoundland and Labrador, if I'm out fishing, I catch three flounder and 2 codfish. That's my limit. Whereas in the Maritimes, their limit is 5 codfish plus 5 or 10 haddock and pollock. So because we catch a flounder, that's counted against our limit. That's not right.
No, it's not. I mean, and all that happens is if people are so inclined, they'll go out and get their 5, come in, fill it, go back out, get their other 5, which costs more in fuel and more in time and more in energy, as opposed to not even everyone's going to take 10. I've gone out with the boys, and so there's 3 of us on the boat. We only came in with 10 because we only wanted 10. We didn't need 15. We were just going to use it for a supper date or something. So, yeah.
Absolutely, and I think it's a lot of fear-mongering going on about the limit and people thinking the worst. It's ridiculous. And then the last point, Patty, I'd like to make is about the boat limit. There's been no mention. They got that boat limit in the survey, and there is no, as you and I both know, when I busted that wide open a few years ago, there is no such thing as a boat limit. It's 5 fish per person, for each person aboard that boat, provided that boat could safely carry that number of people. Yeah,
and they say, it's just for all intents and purposes, a suggestion, because if they see people abusing the system, they apparently they have the right to change the rules, even midstream. So you're right, and I've read that email out, and I have forwarded that email out countless times over the years.
Patty, it's unbelievable, Patty. It's like talking to a brick wall. You know, and what we're saying is true. What we're saying is right. And, you know, we're not making anything up. We're not fabricating anything. We're just trying to do what's right for us and for the people of food fishers, Newfoundland and Labrador.
That's about it.
That's all I have, Paddy. Thank you very much. As always, it's been a pleasure.
My pleasure, Barry. Thank you.
All the best.
Okay, bye-bye. Last word goes to line number 1. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello, Pat. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, could you give me some information on Crown Land and who to talk to fast, so I get someone to talk to, and who, on what side, the buyer or seller, has to do all this, doing out the work for it, you know? So, you know what I'm saying, if you're going to buy it.
So, what's your specific question? I'm sorry?
What a phone number, or do you have a shortcut so I can talk to somebody about Crown Land, if it is Crown Land or not, to find out if it could be?
There's a land use atlas on the government's website that identifies where Crown Land is.
Oh, is that? Well, see, I don't know much about computers right now, so can you explain it, to write it down for it? You know, tell me to write it down.
Sure. Well, if you know how to use Google, right?
A little bit, I think, yeah, because I'm not that up on it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's really quite easy. So if you open your computer and you're on Google's page, if you type into the search bar that just says... oh,
yes, I know that part. And then look up Crown Land, and
yeah, so if you just say...
I only use the
just
library.
hold on a second.
I only use the library every now and then, so I can do that.
Okay, hold on. Let me tell you where to go. So, is if you type into the search bar, Newfoundland and Labrador, Crown Lands, Land Use Atlas, it'll bring you right to it.
Newfoundland, Crown... Yeah, what was after Crown Land?
It's called Land Use Atlas.
Okay, Land Use Atlas.
Yep.
ATLAS. Okay.
If you can't find the specific tract of land there, you get back to me. I'll find it for you.
Okay. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, it's relatively easy to use once you get there. Now, if it's a real small parcel of land behind Nanny's, it might not give you that specific an answer, but if she can't get it, I'll help her out. Let's see here. Twitter, where VOCM Open Line follows her. Email address openline@vocm.com. Good shows all week. Plenty of consternation about what it seems to be a change in the tune from Premier Wakeham regarding independent review and referendum, whether or not that binding referendum is still coming. But we can pick up that conversation again on Monday morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy weekend. Talk Monday. Bye-bye.